And Justice for All is an umbrella organization that helps both fundraising and logistics, primarily for Utah's three major civil legal service providers, so Utah Legal Aid, the Disability Law Center, and Utah Legal Services. On top of that, it helps raise money for a host of other organizations that can apply for grants. Effectively, it helps take the guesswork out of donating and administrating for services that really need that help in the Valley, and to allow practitioners and the general public to donate to one group and know that their funds are going to be used in the most efficient and effective manner to try to provide for this civil legal need. I think it was a tremendous foresight that In Justice for All was in how it was founded, to allow one group to help raise for all these different groups. The amount of efficiency that allows for the group to have, I think, is something that legal communities across the country could take a look at and be advantaged from.
Well, the mission of In Justice for All is so important because I think it brings back the idea of why many of us went to law school. There are important disputes taking place that need to be heard by the courts, and this is our last chance for justice in the court system. Some people may not have the skill set to bring their own case forward or know the various intricacies of the legal system, so we need to be able to provide these people with good representation where they can have a voice and have a say and hopefully get their justice.
My son's active duty Army, and he was being deployed to Iraq. So, since he lived in Washington, he decided that he would bring Christopher here with me, and I would take care of him for the year that JR was deployed. I got a text, and it had some pictures on it from his teacher. And she said, I want to tell you that Christopher has some bruises on his side. He got those in a chair.
So Naomi came to us specifically with concerns about a Riften chair causing bruising. They were using it as a disciplinary item for Christopher. A Riften chair is supposed to be used for students who have posturing issues, and it really is something a doctor should recommend that a school use.
So we put him in another class. He had a male teacher because they thought because his dad wasn't here, he would bond with the male teacher. And he loved his male teacher. But that caused a lot of issues. That's where the seclusionary timeout booth really came in. We'd go pick him up, and the booth would be shut, locked. And he would be in there, just having a meltdown. And we found out that he was in that booth for over 4 hours.
Christopher had a lot of behaviors because of his disabilities, and the school was not recognizing any of those behaviors as part of his disability, and instead was choosing to use restraint and seclusion as a way of disciplining him and punishing him for these behaviors. The challenge in all of this was there wasn't a real clear rule that specifically addressed restraint and seclusion in schools. So we went to the State Office of Education, suggested a rule to restrict this to only emergency situations, and they listened to what we had to say, and Christopher's story was part of the reason that they listened.
And I could not have done it myself because I didn't know where to go. I was so lucky, thank God, that I went to the right place, and that was the Disability Law Center.
We not only have the ability to provide individual advocacy, but we look at systemic issues as well. Christopher's situation has now changed the way school is for all students. All students now are safe and free from restraint and seclusion.
I didn't feel alone anymore. I felt like there's somebody that's with me. I don't have to fight this battle alone. And the outcome was amazing. And I feel so much better that Christopher will know someday that he was the start of all this. And it's a miracle.
So I was previously in an abusive relationship with the father of my son. Me and him met November 2013. I got pregnant very quickly, so about 2 months into dating, I found out I was pregnant, and things were great, and we were happy, and we were in love. He was very sweet and funny, and he made me laugh, and he reminded me of my dad. And as time went on, I started noticing he was becoming very possessive. I ignored it. I ignored it like red flags. I ignored the red flags because I was pregnant and I was scared. It was the first time. You're not really yourself anymore when you spend a significant amount of time in an abusive relationship, and I was going to bed just kind of thinking that he was going to do something where both me and my son maybe weren't going to wake up the next day, and it was getting very just kind of scary. The incident that made me realize I needed to protect myself was when he pulled a knife on me. That just made me realize that he had no care for the safety of myself or our son.
Amanda was in a very dire situation where she did need legal help and needed an order of protection, or the next incident could have been deadly.
A protective order it couldn't necessarily physically keep this person away from me. It was something that I could do to scare him away from me. And that's when I started doing research and what my options were, because I didn't have money. You know, I wasn't working and I had lost my job because of him.
In Amanda's case, as in many of our cases, her child witnessed the domestic violence, and that is a very serious thing, that there is a lasting psychological impact on these kids who witness domestic violence, especially between their parents. These children who witness domestic violence and grow up to be adults, they are 6 times more likely to commit suicide. They are 50% more likely to have drug and alcohol addiction issues. And then they are 74% more likely to either become perpetrators of violence or victims themselves. By obtaining a protective order is a really important step of stopping the cycle of domestic violence, because the last thing we want to do is to have it turn into a generational cycle of domestic violence.
With the protective order, I was able to tell him finally that you aren't allowed to hurt me anymore. You can try, but if you do, then this is where you'll end up and you'll go to jail. So he didn't want to go to jail, and that was my leverage. And finally, I got my permanent protective order against him, and that was that. That was kind of the first happy thing that happened to me in about 2.5 years. So it was the first light in the very dark tunnel that I was stuck in for a long time. So.